Well, first, I want to say thank you for having us. We really appreciate the opportunity. When I first came back, though, my first job was in Brown County, Indiana. That's in, if you guys know where Bloomington is, it's just a little east of Bloomington in Nashville. The city of Nashville's there. I worked in the prosecutor's office there, heading up their child support division and also working on various misdemeanor crimes and different things like that. Next job that I took was in Vanderburgh County. We were very happy to get home, or closer to home. And there I worked in the drug department. So I prosecuted a lot of different felonies, but my main focus was felony drug crimes. Got a lot of experience in undercover buys and methamphetamine labs and different things that really have helped in this position here in this county. I started at the prosecutor's office here, was elected, and took office January 1st, 2011. To tell you a little bit about who I brought with me, this is Kenny Rose. He's been in law enforcement for a very long time. He has some interesting statements for me when I mention age or something like that. He'll say, well, I was doing that when you were, you know, and you can imagine the types of things. But he started his law enforcement career in January of '79 with the Mount Vernon Police Department. He was a patrolman in 1983, he was a sergeant, detective. In '84, he became a lieutenant. In '87, he became the chief of police in Mount Vernon. And in 1996, or in 1994, I'm sorry, he came to the prosecutor's office as their detective or investigator. And in 1996, the Posey County Narcotics Unit was formed, and his primary responsibility is to act as the supervisor of that narcotics unit. So have you guys ever heard in the news releases or anything of that nature, Posey County Narcotics Unit? Yes? He is the supervisor of the Posey County Narcotics Unit. There's a city officer on that unit as well, a sheriff's deputy on that in that unit, and we also use resources from the federal government, FBI, ATF, from Evansville, and all kinds of different resources. And Detective Rose will talk to you a little bit more about that when he gets up. Now, the topic that I was asked to speak about is really methamphetamine labs and how that might relate to a landlord. Some of their rights, some of their responsibilities, how that might affect them. And we'll get to that. I want to give you a little bit, though, tell you a little bit about what we've been doing. And as we go along, if it's okay with everybody here, if you've got a question or a comment and we're talking about a topic, raise your hand. Some of the best things, discussion we'll have tonight will come from questions. So don't hesitate to raise your hand if I'm in the middle of saying something you want to talk more about. When I was running for office, some of the things that we set out to do and that I believe we've accomplished are, one, we really wanted to focus on our serious crimes more, okay? We wanted to take our, we're a small office. We've got myself, my chief deputy, Jonathan Parkhurst, and we have a part-time child support attorney. So it's a pretty small office. We have tried to take our resources and our time and focus on our bigger cases. You've seen a lot of bigger cases go to trial. The Lear case, among others. There's been a lot of cases that you may have seen in the papers that have went to trial. Those are more serious cases. Our misdemeanors, our smaller offenses, we've really been trying to work those out by agreements that are, you know, having folks do public service, give back to the community in different ways, things of that nature. One of the other things we wanted to do was really closen the bonds between law enforcement and the prosecutor's office. I feel comfortable in saying we're working very closely with our new sheriff. He does an excellent job. We're working close with our city police, and we're using all the resources that we can get our hands on to try and help make our community better. Now, I would say also, you know, the prosecutor's office has to work with a lot of different offices, and we have two of the best judges in the state, in my opinion. Oh, Judge Redwine, I'm sorry, I didn't see that. How are you this evening? Now, I don't only say that because Judge Redwine is here, but I truly believe that. We have two judges who have a wealth of experience and wisdom. Wisdom is not easy to come by in today's times, and they have a lot of it. So we get to work with a lot of different people, and we're very thankful for that. Another thing that we've tried to do is be very accessible to the public. When I took office, I tried to remember that the people who voted for me, and even the people who didn't vote for me, are my boss. Okay? They are the ones who put me in office. They're the ones who I need to respond to and listen to. And if you've I would like to think that most of the people who have tried to contact me, set up a meeting, come in and talk about a case, come in and talk about something that concerns them, we do it. Now that makes for some pretty long days, but we try to be very accessible, okay? Now, one of the other big things that we talked about when I was campaigning was our drug prosecution. That was, on the lips of everybody that I talked to. I think I got out to, it was somewhere around 4,500 homes that I personally knocked on the door and talked to whoever was there and left brochures and spoke to them while I was campaigning. And there wasn't too many people who said, we've got a pretty bad drug problem and we need to do something about it. It was a very hot topic, and I think it still is today, not only in our community, but a lot of communities. So one of the things that we wanted to do was become very proactive instead of reactive. And Detective Rose will talk about that a little bit, but you could say something now. You're mic'd up right now, aren't you?
Yes.
Well, what's the difference that you've seen that we've done instead of being proactive versus reactive?
Well, we got to the point with the epidemic of clandestine meth labs that we, as a drug task force, even though we tried to expand it, had become, as Prosecutor Clowers said, reactive. When Prosecutor Clowers first came in office, within the first week, I met with him and Sheriff Oath, who had also recently been elected as a new sheriff of Posey County, and they both asked me, what do you need and what's the problems? And I said, first thing out of my mouth, we're reactive. We're not a proactive unit due to the number of meth labs. I said, we've got to change that somehow. They said, what do we need to do? And I said, we need this resource, this, and this in the support field of the drug task force. A matter of days, that went into effect, and we've changed our reactive to proactive, where when you go after a clandestine meth lab operator, or what we refer to as a cook, you get bogged down with just the lab. Well, it takes a while to find those labs, and sometimes we know where they are, but to meet Indiana law, we have to have enough for someone like Judge Redwine, enough probable cause for him to sign, according to Indiana law, a search warrant. So that takes a little while us to build our case before I can take it to the prosecutor. He prepares the search warrant, and we take it to someone like Judge Redwine. So we branched out and kind of pulled double duty, meant a few more hours, but we started pulling double duty and went after the street dealer. Because when you deal with the meth street dealer and the others up the ladder, when you take off them direct, and sometimes we can get to them quicker than we can the actual physical lab, not only are you taking off the street dealer, but he's the one that's cooking also. So you shut him down before he got any farther, and what you can do for 4 or 5 months trying to get into a location that has a meth lab, you've done in a month, and you've accomplished both things in general.
And this is still going on, and I guess the simplest way to put it is we know who the problems are, and we're starting to target those problems, okay? Who's heard of Operation Heatwave, Operation Fair Warning? Did you see those in the paper? Okay, he came up with those names, so I kind of like them. I thought they were catchy. But those were operations that went on for 6, 8, 9 months to a year, where we said, okay, who's manufacturing, who's selling? We're going to target these people. We're going to find out what's going on. We're going to make arrests. Now, those operations have netted almost 60 individuals who are arrested for drug activity. So that's the difference. And frankly, it's still going on. Okay, we haven't stopped. We haven't changed our approach. And I think in time, it's really going to pay some dividends. I really do believe that. Okay, so let's talk about the landlord a little bit. Okay. Who here has rental properties? Anybody? Okay, so I'm talking, some of you folks are going to have some very specific questions, and don't hesitate to ask us, because I'm going to be talking in generalities. If you've got specific questions, don't hesitate to ask, okay? I guess I would start out by saying it's not great news for landlords, what's going on right now. The way that it's set up, the way the law is, and it's administrative law, 318, and I printed out a code, and I'm going to pass it around. I've also got a stack of them if you want to take with you. I've got some forms that the health department uses. I've got the form that Detective Rose will post on a house when there's a meth lab there, and we've also got some other materials. So take any of that with you that you want, Is there something we don't have that you think you might want to see? We can follow up and get our hands on it. Okay, so first let's talk about let's talk a little bit about what you might be looking for. Okay, we have made a lot of cases by landlords calling us. I can think of one in particular where a landlord called us and said, "Hey, I've been seeing some suspicious activity. I've seen some things in this burn barrel that, you know, are making me a little concerned. Can you come take a look at this?" Detective Rose goes out, takes a look at it. We start building a case. We actually wound up executing a search warrant, finding a full-blown meth lab. I think they're both still in prison, and their kids are in a safe place now, foster care, I believe, or something like that. But we've made many cases like that by landlords saying, "Hey, I'm seeing something that's going on," and relaying that to the police. Okay? Yes, ma'am.
What are we looking for?
Let me tell you what you're looking for. Well, I tell you what. Why don't you tell them what we're looking for? Detective Rose has testified in numerous trials about meth making. Okay, he could do it right now if he had to. He can show you all the steps, and he'd probably be the better person for it. So why don't you tell them a little bit about what they're looking for? And you can stay there, come up here, whatever you want
This
to do.
is fine. First of all, you get odors, and a lot of people. Some of you that grew up or still own farms or worked on farms know what anhydrous ammonia smells like. Ether, if you've ever done any work on your tractors or the cars in the old carbureted days. Usually those smells are recognizable, but anytime you have a strange chemical smell and you can't really put your finger on it, and especially with the new process, it was first called the cold method. Now they refer to, and then it was called shake and bake. Now it's referred to as a one-pot method. It's a simplified, shorter, quicker cook version, and it doesn't use anhydrous ammonia. It'll use the ammonium nitrate in the cold package. You put on an arm for swelling. Those you can buy them in the drugstores. The ambulance people or carry them on their ambulances. But what you're looking for is some specific ingredients. If you start at one of your rental homes, you go over to talk to your tenant, do an inspection occasionally once or twice a year, and around the trash barrel, as Mr. Clowers mentioned, you'll start seeing strange things. Empty cold medicine boxes, and I'm not just talking about one, but you might see a half a dozen or a dozen of those laying around. Or there might be a barbecue gas barbecue grill LP tank, and that in itself is not unusual, but the valve has been changed on it, and that valve is turned to a bluish green color. That's a sign it had the old-fashioned anhydrous ammonia placed in it. Drain opener bottles, such as Liquid Fire or Drano, things like that. 2 or 3 of those bottles around. The starting fluid cans, they'll have a hole punched in them. You might see them laying out by the back door. Pieces of aluminum foil.
Used in very different ways than what you and I would use them for. When you're seeing battery casings stripped out from lithium batteries, that's a telltale sign. When you're seeing a Mountain Dew bottle with a hose coming out of it, that's a telltale sign. Things of that nature.
The coffee filters, it's got like a pink stain in them. Things like that. Those are all byproducts or leftover waste products of a clandestine meth lab, and especially the 2-liter plastic soft drink bottles. That's what they're using for in the one-pot method as a reaction vessel, and it'll have some substance, maybe some liquid in it at the bottom. It may be fresh, it may be old, but if you see any of those things, you need to pick up the phone and make a phone call, because you're waiting for some problems on your property right then, and you're going to get stuck. If these people are arrested, there's no bond posted, they go off to prison for 20 years or 10 years, whatever the case may be. The cleanup costs, and Prosecutor Clowers will get into that here a little bit more later, you're going to be the one stuck with it. You have no way to get that restitution out of that tenant.